I'm no stranger to the extraction genre, my friends. In fact, this channel here, after starting as a tech channel, transitioning into a gaming channel with a main focus on extraction-based shooters, i.e. the main one being Ghosts of Tabor, as you know if you've been on this channel for a while. But I've been playing in this space for years with Escape from Tarkov. As soon as the first available purchasable beta dropped in like 2016, I was in Tarkov, and I've been playing on and off ever since. And when it comes to gaming, one thing always seems to happen. Someone finds the formula, others follow the leader until eventually the OG is done. Or anything else that tries to copy it dies. Now look at PUBG, the BR king that took over the mantle from H1Z1, who happened to take over and create a genre based on a mod for Arma. That's nuts to me. Then, out of nowhere comes Fortnite, dethroning PUBG and becoming the most popular game in the world. The point of this is to say that coexistence can happen. PUBG still has a pretty good player base, but H1Z1 is ultimately super dead. So when Dark and Darker came out of the woodwork as a unique entry in the extraction game genre, the eyes were on it, and then the lawsuit from Nexon came, and all of a sudden other independent studios were announcing projects that just so happened to look like Dark and Darker a little bit. One of those games being Dungeonborne, formerly known as Project Crawl. Thank God they got a better name. The other was Greed is Good, which is ultimately, maybe Greed is not good because that game is dead.
Help me! Help me!
Now, Dark and Darker beat the case. They got to come back to Steam, and the game has evolved and changed over the last year. It has a very loyal fan base, just like Tarkov does. So when anyone tries to mess with that, the players get a little cranky. You look at Arena Breakout Infinite versus Tarkov in the last couple months when Tarkov was messing up pretty good. Most of the day one Tarky players were still on Tarkov's side and, basically took issue with ABI. And the same thing appears to be happening here. Most Dark and Darker players or veterans do not like Dungeonborne, so I played it to find out why. Keep in mind, this is not a full review of the game, as this is the final test before launch, so the game isn't fully out yet, and I only have about 5 hours into the game as of recording this video. For full transparency, I am a part of the Dungeonborne creator program, but I retain my right to say exactly what I want to say about the game at all times. No ifs, ands, or booty cheeks about it. I have not been asked to say anything specific about the game. So there's my spiel about transparency. Let's start with what I do like about this game. Now, a little tiny bit of character creation and the classes. There's not a ton of creation options. It's not like you're going to get in there and you're going to be, it's not Baldur's Gate 3. You know what I mean? But there is enough in there to make the character that you want for the most part. And most classes let you customize a male or female character with a different face, hair, skin, makeup, tattoo options. If you pick a race that has a skull or is a skeleton, you do have hair options, hair color options, tattoo options, things like that. So character customization is okay. It's pretty good. And graphically, the game is beautiful. Animation on characters and weapons are good. I enjoy the map design of the current maps in the game, and enemies are pretty cool to look at and to fight. Now, this is an extraction-based game, but along with that extraction mode, there's also a competitive arena mode. Pretty cool. We played the 3v3 team deathmatch mode that is in the game, and while sadly you don't get any XP for your character or anything like that, there's no rewards, I still thought it was pretty fun and a pretty cool addition. And rewards will likely change in the future. I don't have any information on that, but I would imagine they would reward you or give you something for playing the mode. Otherwise, why would anybody play it? So yeah, it might change in the future, but it is a fun little experience to play, a little time waster. It's pretty fun. The camp screen is pretty cool. Finding a merchant, alchemist, the crafting, it's super easy. There isn't a million traders to scroll through and find out who has what, where do I gotta go for this? There's only 3 of them or so. It's quick, easy. You can just stop in, buy and sell, and then you can move on to the next match. It's super nice. I really do enjoy the traders and the camp screen a lot. There is an auction house style marketplace in the game day one. No waiting for that, which is pretty cool. I think that's still relatively new to D&D, and this is in it, you know, before the game even launches. It was there before, from my understanding. So that's a good thing to have in there. And the final thing that I wanted to say about good experiences is playing with friends is a very good experience. I tried to play solo, trying to fight some of these enemies and stuff like that. We'll get into that, but for me, man, solo was not the way to go in this game. As soon as I had my full squad of 3, I started having a lot more fun in this game. So I don't know, keep that in mind as we continue on. But you know, the party system, playing with friends is good. But where there are good, there's also some not so good. Now, I'm not going to sit here and dog on the game like some of the people in YouTube comments on certain creators' videos talking about Tencent for some reason. I don't even know if this is a Tencent product at this point. But, you know, you have to know at this point that Tencent has their hands in literally anything, and if you refuse to play a game because Tencent is involved in it, you may as well take up reading as your new hobby instead of gaming, because they own nearly everything. Brother, 80% of the gaming industry is owned, partially owned, or has investments by Tencent. So a lot of people really don't understand that, it seems like. This was a huge issue and outcry with Arena Breakout Infinite as well, being, you know, Tencent owned or backed or whatever. And it's like, are you gonna tell them or should I? So let's get into some stuff that I don't really like about this game. Man, for starters, the movement feels weird sometimes. It's like, you know, Dark and Darker is slow, and this almost feels as slow as that, but then also at times also somehow manages to feel slower at the same time. I don't know how they do it. In fact, it's kind of impressive that you can do that, because based on physics and things like that, I don't know how that works, but I know that I don't really care for it. The combat is okay, right? But it does feel really weird at times. The ability to see the charge bar on your weapon and get a different animation and swing depending on the attack is really cool, but sometimes the lunging on heavy attacks just kind of launches me across the map towards an enemy, but then I hit nothing. You know what I mean? And sometimes, for whatever reason, it targets my allies and kind of just auto pulls me to an ally, and I accidentally dash stab one of my buddies. And it just feels kind of clunky, and I don't really understand it. Like, it could be super cool. The problem is I just feel like it hasn't been in the oven long enough. You know what I mean? It hasn't quite baked enough. You know what I mean? And another issue that I have with the combat system is in PvP. Now, unlike Dark and Darker, that is more slow and methodical, this is very fast. It's very fast in this game, seemingly needlessly. The rogue swings their weapon at an ungodly rate of speed. Honestly, like speed of light. The light spam plagues this game. Whereas in Dark and Darker, it feels more like, you know, light spammers may get punished by tankier foes. And in in this, I feel like the winner of the fight seems to be determined by whoever has the strongest ADHD, right? Because you're light spamming, you're also flinging your mouse around your mat. You're doing 360, swinging your sword a million miles an hour, and it just doesn't feel great. Some of the fights that we got into didn't feel like that, and it felt really good when it's like that. But the fact is, like, as fast as you can click your mouse, that's how fast you can swing on the rogue. So it really, I don't know, man. And another thing to bring up too with fighting is enemies do an ungodly amount of damage. And I'm not talking about PvP here. It almost feels like PvP damage isn't as strong as PvE damage. It's very weird. And it's kind of like this in Dark and Darker too, where, you know, AI enemies do quite a bit of damage, but in this, it seems like I have to potion or bandage if I ever get hit one time by something PvE. It's like the game doesn't know if it's trying to be super hardcore or super arcadey. I just don't think there's like a lack of identity there. Portals are not shown on the ground very well when it comes to escaping. It's a blue circle on the ground that you need to go and interact with in order for a portal to pop up, instead of something sprouting up out of the ground to take. And portals are one use only. So if you find one portal with your boys, good luck to the other two. I also want to point out that this game is also guilty of a sin that I'm mad at Dark and Darker for, and I wish it would stop. The zone. I know, this game isn't meant to be a BR. D&D isn't meant to be a BR, but both this game and D&D removed any form of zone that pushed people to the middle of the map for the final moment showdown to see who could escape first. The feeling in D&D, fighting 2 to 3 teams at the end to try to get out, is what got me hooked on the game in the first place. And then D&D went and removed that and added static escapes, so now people loot one room and just run away. It's not great. I hardly see any PvP anymore. Maybe one team a match, 2 if we're lucky. Sometimes I don't see anybody. Dungeonborne does the same thing, and I hate it. Put a mechanic in that forces the endgame PvP. It's what made the game so fun to begin with, the PvP and the risk of losing everything. That's why I want to play it. I don't need you holding my hand. I don't need static spawns. What I need is to see 2 or 3 teams at the end of 3, so there's 9 of us there swinging on each other, trying to fight for our lives. But then, I also gotta think, what if I never played Dark and Darker? Would this game, if it were the first of the genre that I played, be good? I like to think that it would. It feels similar, maybe a little more arcadey, and blocking and parrying don't seem to be super great, especially in PvP, but maybe Dungeonborne just isn't the Fortnite to D&D's PUBG. You know what I mean? What if I never felt the movement of Dark and Darker? What if I never experienced the combat of Dark and Darker? Would I still feel the same way that I do now about the issues that I take with this test? I don't know. So let's leave it here, man. Would I play it? Yeah, I would. It's all right. Is it better than D&D? No. And that's okay. If this is your first venture into the space of medieval extraction, you may think it's the best thing ever. I don't, but you might, and I hope you like it. Dungeonborne has some good quality of life changes that D&D doesn't have, and maybe Iron Mace will be forced to implement some of these features into their game in the future, and only time will tell on that. But if the game looks cool and feels good to you, play it. That's what it's all about, after all, right? Everybody's been saying for the last however long that gaming has become such this toxic cesspool with all the microtransactions, and gaming companies just don't care. And I feel like people are finally starting to realize that this isn't new. This has been what gaming has been since its inception. You don't just form an industry for nothing. You don't form an industry based on $0, okay? Gaming became one of the fastest growing industries in the 90s, in the 80s, in the 2000s, not because they just wanted players to have fun. It was so they could make money. And a lot of people maybe don't realize that, or don't pay attention, or they think it's just gotten bad. And it's like, no, it's always been this way. It's just been done in different forms, right? You don't get rich by selling nothing, brother. So when we do get little gems that come along that make us happy, we should enjoy it, savor it, have fun with it. That's the point of gaming after all. Just because the companies want to make money off of us doesn't mean that we can't have fun whilst we get the shaft. And if Dungeonborne is something that makes you happy or you like, hey, enjoy it, man. It's there for you, and I hope you have a fun time. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the video. If you liked it, like it, subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest content, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.